My name is Margaret Lane. I'm 76 years old and I've spent my entire life giving. Giving time, giving care, giving love. I raised my son, Daniel, as a single mother after his father walked out when he was just 2. I worked 3 jobs to put food on the table, skipped meals so he could eat, missed sleep so he could rest. I gave that boy my everything. So you can imagine the heartbreak, the betrayal, the raw sting in my chest when just 3 weeks ago, I walked into my own kitchen to find Daniel and his wife Linda, whispering behind my back. When they saw me, they didn't stop. Daniel looked at me and said, "Mom, we've talked. And we think you're getting in the way." Thought he was joking. In the way. Of what? The house I built. The family I protected. Then Linda added with a cold smile, "You take up space, Margaret. It's time you considered a home. One with, professional help." They weren't suggesting, they were telling me to leave. Leave the house I paid off. The same house I signed over to Daniel when I thought I was giving him a head start in life. And just like that, the son I carried in my arms wanted me out like an old piece of furniture. But here's the twist. What they didn't know was that I had never truly handed over control. Not legally. I had drawn up something extra with my lawyer years ago. Plus, one they never read. And now, they're out on the street. But I didn't just throw them out suddenly. No, there's a story behind that day. And if you think I'm the villain, think again. Let me take you back. Let me tell you exactly what led to the moment I handed them the envelope and said, "Pack your things." It started a few months before that awful day in the kitchen. Back then, I still believed in the kindness of my family. I still thought love could protect you from betrayal. But I was wrong. The first crack began when I noticed Linda had changed the living room furniture. Not moved it, changed it. My vintage couch was gone. The one I bought secondhand and restored with my bare hands. When I asked her where it went, she shrugged and said, "It looked old. I donated it." Gasp. "You donated my couch. It's not really your living room anymore, is it?" she snapped. I laughed nervously. "Linda, this is my house." She rolled her eyes. "It was your house. Daniel and I are building a future now. You're just here." That word again. Just here. A week later, they hosted a dinner. Friends, laughter, wine. I wasn't invited. I was asked to stay upstairs to rest, because it might be too noisy for me. I heard my name mentioned during the laughter. Heard Linda imitate my voice, talking about old lady advice, and how I still iron socks. They laughed. My own son laughed. I sat in the dark of my room, knees hugged to my chest like a child, the food smell wafting up. They didn't even bring me a plate. I started doubting myself. Was I being too sensitive? Was I imagining things? But then I overheard something that changed everything. Linda was on the phone. She was standing in the hallway, and she thought I had gone out. But I was in the pantry, sorting old jars. "He's almost convinced," she whispered. "I keep telling him she's becoming a burden. Once she's gone, we can finally renovate. I'll make the guest room my office." No, she doesn't suspect a thing. He's just old. And soft. Burden. Hit me like a punch to the chest. I closed my eyes and steadied myself. Something inside me cracked, but it didn't break. It hardened. They thought I was weak. They thought I was fading. But what they didn't know was that I had spent a lifetime surviving. I wasn't about to let my final years be stolen from me. The next morning I smiled like nothing happened. I baked them muffins. I said thank you and good night and God bless you like always. But I had already started planning. I visited my lawyer that same week. Mr. Harper, an old friend from church. He shook his head when I told him everything. "Do you still have that life estate clause I drew up?" "Yes." He smiled and opened the file. "They never registered the title change properly. You still have every right, Margaret. You can evict them tomorrow." I shook my head. "Not tomorrow. Not yet. I want them to dig their own hole. Then I'll show them the shovel." Back at home I started documenting, recording, watching. One afternoon I caught Linda throwing out my jewelry box. She said the pieces were cheap and cluttered her aesthetic. She never knew I saw her take 2 gold bracelets before tossing the rest. Daniel was no better. He changed my medication. Told the doctor I was forgetting things I never forgot. I saw it all. I stayed quiet. Because I wasn't just watching them. I was preparing. I waited until they crossed the final line. And when they did, I handed them a letter with my lawyer's seal. Daniel opened it and paled. Linda screamed. "What is this?" I stood in the doorway with my suitcase packed. "It's an eviction," I said calmly. "You have 30 days. She lunged at me. "You can't do this. This is our home." Smiled. Was. And then I turned and walked to the car waiting outside. My friend's son, Henry, the one who used to mow my lawn when he was a teenager. He opened the door for me and said, "Let's go, ma'am." As we drove away, I looked back one last time. Daniel was on the porch, speechless. Linda was crying. But it wasn't sadness. It was fear. 'Cause they knew. They'd messed with the wrong old woman. And what happened next? Oh, that was just the beginning. You won't believe what Linda did in retaliation. And how Daniel spiraled completely out of control. To be continued. If this story touched something in you, if you believe that strength has no age and dignity deserves protection, please like this video, comment below with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. What would you have done in Grandma Margaret's shoes? The night I left my own house, the house I paid for with years of sweat and sacrifice, felt like a funeral. Not for me, but for the version of me that still believed my son loved me the way I had loved him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared out the car window as Henry drove me to the small guest house he'd set up for me behind his family's hardware store. Humble space, yes, but warm. Filled with dignity. Something I hadn't felt in my own home in months. I should have felt peace, relief, maybe even triumph. But instead I felt hollow. I didn't raise Daniel to be like that. Or maybe I did without realizing it. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the wooden rocking chair by the window, clutching a cup of tea and asking myself the same question again and again. Where did I go wrong? The next morning I received a call from Mr. Harper. "They came by my office," he said, his voice dry. "Your son looked like someone had smacked him with a brick." His wife. Well, she demanded I reverse the document. Scoff. Reverse the document. She said it was elder abuse. Tried to accuse you of mental instability, Margaret. She even brought printouts of fake text messages, saying you were confused. Pause. Did it work? Harper laughed. "I've known you 40 years. You're sharper than I am." She stormed out when I told her that the only unstable person in this mess was the one married to your son. I smiled, but inside I was worried. Linda wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous when cornered. And now I'd cornered her. It didn't take long for the retaliation to begin. First came the phone calls. Dozens of them. Linda crying, shouting, pretending to apologize. "We didn't mean it, Margaret. Please, we were stressed. Let's talk." Then Daniel would call with his old boyish tone. "Mom, it was Linda's idea. You know how she gets. I was going to stop her, I swear." They were scrambling. Desperate. But I didn't answer. Because I knew they weren't sorry. They were scared. One day, Henry came running into the guest house. "Ma'am," he panted. "You need to see something." He handed me his phone. It was a Facebook post. Linda had posted a photo of me. From years ago. One where I was in my garden, wearing mismatched gloves and dirt all over my face. The caption read, "She may look sweet, but don't let the apron fool you. Kicked us out of our own home in the middle of a recession. Retired. More like retired evil." Hundreds of comments followed. Some were mocking, others cruel. But then something happened I didn't expect. Support. A woman named Sharon commented, "My mother went through the same thing. Stand strong, ma'am." Another, "This generation thinks everything belongs to them. Mate." And then a man I hadn't seen in 30 years, Raymond, who once worked with me at the bakery, replied. If that's Margaret Lane, y'all better put some respect on her name. She raised half this town. Tide turned. And Linda hated that. The next day they showed up at the guest house. Without warning. Banging on the door. I opened it slowly, heart steady. Mom, Daniel said. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were sunken, his hair messy. He held Linda's hand like a leash. Linda had no mascara. That was the first sign of how far things had fallen. You need to stop this, she said through clenched teeth. You're ruining us. No, I said. You ruined yourselves. Daniel stepped forward. Can't we talk? Like mother and son. I stared at him. Like the time you laughed when she said I was a burden. Or when you let her throw out the necklace your father gave me. He looked down. Linda, never one to back off, snarled. You think you won? You're living in a shoebox behind a store. Smiled. Yet somehow, I'm happier in that shoebox than I ever was in a mansion with 2 snakes. Daniel tried again. Mom, we have nowhere to go. Please. And for a moment, just one, I felt that old ache. The mother in me whispered, he's still your boy. But then I remembered sleeping upstairs while they laughed downstairs. Remembered the day I heard Linda say, once she's out, we'll paint her room purple. And I closed the door in their faces. But they weren't done. Not by a long shot. 2 nights later, I was woken up by loud banging again. Only this time it wasn't at my door. It was at the front of the store. Henry's family lived upstairs. His father, Winston, came rushing down in pajamas. We saw it together. Spray paint. Red. All over the store windows. Evil witch lives here. She steals from her family. Rot in your rocking chair. My heart dropped. Winston called the police. They arrived fast. Took photos. Nodded. Promised to investigate. But I knew who it was. And the worst part. They weren't even smart enough to hide it. Linda posted a story an hour later. Her nails still stained with red. The caption. Sometimes you gotta speak truth to power. She thought she was clever. But that's when I realized. It was time to end this. For good. I looked at Henry and said, call Mr. Harper. It's time we play the last card. Because I wasn't just going to sit and wait. I was going to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. But the lesson, it would come with teeth. And when I tell you what I did next, you'll see just how far a mother can go when her love turns into fire. To be continued. Are you still with me? What would you have done if your own child turned against you like this? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because next chapter is where the real justice begins. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Harper's office, fingers folded neatly in my lap, the faint scent of lemon polish lingering in the air. He looked across at me, his glasses low on his nose, and said, Margaret, you sure you want to go through with this next part? I nodded slowly. They spray-painted a family store, humiliated me online, lied to neighbors. I raised a man who let his wife treat me like a tenant in my own home. Yes, George. I'm sure. He gave a long sigh. All right then. Let's go nuclear. And nuclear we did. What Daniel and Linda didn't realize was that the house wasn't the only asset I had protected. Years ago, when I worked as a caregiver and cleaned offices in the evening, I put aside little bits of money. I invested in 3 rental properties under a trust, hidden in a quiet LLC. Daniel didn't even know they existed. I had always told myself it was just in case. Turns out this was the case. Harper pulled out the documents. We'll transfer the trust ownership directly to your new name. You'll keep the income, but more importantly, we're about to make their lives very uncomfortable. You see, Daniel and Linda had recently moved their failing online business into a small office space, one they rented from a company they didn't know I secretly owned. And Harper. He made sure they received a termination of lease notice that same afternoon. Let's just say it didn't land well. I didn't need to be there to witness it. But Henry's cousin worked next door to their building and told me everything. She threw her laptop, he said, eyes wide, like across the room. Then started screaming about witches and curses. Daniel just sat there stunned. He still didn't understand how it was all unraveling so fast. But Linda, she suspected. She knew I wasn't done. So she came to me again. Alone. She showed up at the store, this time in sunglasses and a big scarf like she was some undercover spy. She waited outside until I finished restocking eggs. I stepped out. She took off her glasses. I'm pregnant. Froze. She clutched her stomach. 3 months. It's Daniel's. Quiet moment passed between us. Then I said, congratulations. She blinked. That's it. He nodded. I hope the child turns out nothing like either of you. Her mouth fell open. You wouldn't kick your grandchild's parents out onto the street, would you? Smiled. That child has my blood. And if it ever comes to me for love, I will give it everything I have. But you and Daniel, you've already cashed out all my love. Her voice trembled. You're heartless. I looked her square in the eye. You called me a burden. Pest. Roadblock. You wanted me erased. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every word. So let me make this simple. I leaned in. You're not welcome anywhere near me, my money, or my peace. Linda took a step back, trembling now. Not with fear but rage. And that's when she said something that made the ground shift beneath us. Well, if I'm going down, I'm taking everything down with me. I raised a brow. What does that mean? But she just turned and walked away. 2 days later I found out what she meant. Henry rushed into my guest house, phone in hand. Margaret, you need to see this. Was a video posted on a local gossip blog, titled, Elderly Woman Evicts Son and Pregnant Daughter-in-Law, but you won't believe what she's hiding. My heart dropped. In the video, Linda was crying into the camera. Fake tears. Crocodile ones. She tricked us, she sobbed. She gave us the house, then kicked us out. She faked being senile so we'd take care of her. And now she's abandoned her own grandchild before it's even born. We're homeless. The comments were brutal. How can a mother do that to her own son? She looks evil. That smile ain't right. Disgusting old hag. Hope karma finds her. I sat in silence. And then the phone started ringing. Friends, church folks, even my old bridge partner. Margaret, what's going on? I explained to some. Ignored others. But the damage, it was done. Linda's smear campaign was working. I could have stayed quiet. But something inside me had snapped. This was no longer about property. This was war. So I did what I had to. I sat down with Henry and recorded a video. I told the whole truth. How I raised Daniel with nothing but love. How I gave them my home thinking I was helping them start a life. How they pushed me out of my own kitchen. Laughed at me. Mocked me. And how I had the receipts. Literal video footage of Linda tossing my jewelry, mocking my age, and plotting with Daniel to get rid of me. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just told the truth. Henry edited it. Clean. Honest. We uploaded it at midnight. And by morning everything changed. The video went viral. People started defending me. Commenters wrote things like, she reminds me of my grandma. I would never do this to her. They messed with the wrong woman. Respect. She gave them love. They gave her pain. Even bigger influencers started sharing it. By noon, Linda had deleted her video. By evening, I received an email from the very gossip blog that mocked me, asking for an interview. And then, something unexpected happened. Daniel showed up again. But this time, he wasn't angry. He wasn't smug. He was broken. Tears in his eyes. Knees on the floor. Mom, he whispered. I didn't know she recorded that video. I didn't know she'd do all that. I sat across the room, unmoved. She said you were faking everything. Said you manipulated the law. I didn't know what to believe. You believed her over me, I said. I'm sorry, he cried. Please, help us. And in that moment, I should have felt satisfied. But instead I felt a hollow ache in my chest. Because I had my son back in front of me, but he was no longer the man I raised. And what I said next? Even I didn't expect it to come out of my mouth. I stood, walked to the window and said, "You can stay. Just you." He looked up. "What about Linda?" "Turn. Not a chance." And then I added something that made him break completely. But I'll tell you exactly what I said, to him and to the child they claimed to carry, in the next chapter. To be continued. Was Margaret right to let her son return without his wife? What would you have done in her place? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next chapter, because the next move changes everything. Daniel's face crumpled the moment I said it. "You can stay. Just you." He sat on the guesthouse floor, shoulders shaking, lips trembling. The man who once towered over me like he had outgrown my love now looked like a child who had lost his blanket. "But she's my wife," he whispered, barely able to look at me. I nodded slowly. "And I was your mother." He lifted his eyes, pleading. "You still are." "No, Daniel," I said, my voice cracking. "I was your mother when I packed your school lunches with the last scraps in our fridge. When I sat at every parent-teacher conference alone. When I sold my wedding ring just to keep the heat on in winter. You left that mother in the hallway like a broken lamp." He stood up slowly, wiping his tears. "What do I do now?" I took a deep breath and told him the one thing I had been saving. "You can choose to be a man again. Or you can follow a woman who will destroy everything good left in you." His eyes widened. "She's pregnant." I gave a small nod. "So she says." "You don't believe her." "I don't believe anything anymore," I said. "But if she is carrying that child, then that child will one day ask what kind of man their father was. And right now, you don't want to be the answer." Daniel sunk onto the couch behind him and stared blankly at the floor. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. Then I said what I had never thought I'd say to my only child. "You're welcome to stay here. 1 week. After that, you find your own place. I'll give you a list of rental agencies and a recommendation letter if you need one. But don't come to me for money. Not anymore." He nodded slowly. "Thank you." But I wasn't finished. I walked over to the little drawer in my side table. Pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a photo of him, age 6, missing his front tooth, wearing his Batman pajamas, hugging me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. I handed it to him. "Look at this every time you forget who you used to be." He stared at it, lips quivering. "Now go," I whispered. "Before I change my mind." He left quietly. And for the first time in weeks, the air inside my guesthouse felt breathable. I stood at the window and watched him sit on the curb outside, scrolling through his phone. Probably texting Linda. And sure enough, 10 minutes later she came. Pulling up in a beat-up silver car, windows down, music blaring. She stepped out, belly slightly protruding, or padded, I couldn't tell. Her heels clicked against the pavement like a challenge. She looked at the guesthouse, then saw me in the window, and smiled. But it wasn't the smile of a woman in love. It was the smile of a woman plotting her next attack. Daniel stood and walked toward her. They argued. I couldn't hear a word, but their hands waved wildly. Then Linda pulled out her phone and pointed it at my guesthouse. She was filming. Again. I stepped outside. Looking for more lies to post. I said calmly. She spun. "You like attention, don't you, Margaret?" "No," I replied. "But the truth seems to like me." She laughed. "You think this is over. You're trending for 5 minutes. But me. I've got followers. I have reach." I folded my arms. "You've got claws and no spine. The world sees it now." She stepped closer, face inches from mine. "If you think I'm going to raise my child in a car, you're delusional." I looked over at Daniel. "I told him he can stay. Just him." She laughed like it was a joke. "He's not staying anywhere without me." Daniel looked torn, crushed between loyalty and pride. "Linda," he said softly. Maybe we need space. The fury on her face was instant. What did she promise you? She screamed. A pat on the head. A warm plate of soup. Wake up, Daniel. She doesn't love you. She wants you under her thumb. I stepped between them. No, Linda. I want my son to have a spine. And you clearly resent that. Linda turned to me, eyes blazing. You know what? Fine. Keep him. Let's see how far you get without police knocking on your door next. Are you threatening me? Maybe, she whispered. She got back in her car, slammed the door and peeled off, tires screeching down the road. Daniel stood still, head bowed. She's going to ruin me, he muttered. I didn't say anything. 'Cause he was right. But it wasn't my job to save him anymore. That night I heard soft sobs from the porch. I opened the door and saw Daniel sitting there, wrapped in a blanket, holding the old photo I gave him. I don't know who I am anymore, he whispered. I sat beside him. That's the first honest thing you've said in years. He looked at me, eyes red. I need to fix things. With you. With everyone. He nodded. Then start by taking responsibility. I will. And stay away from people who drag you backward. He was silent for a long time. Then finally said, She called me 3 times already. I didn't answer. Smiled. That's a start. But just as I began to feel the tiniest glimmer of peace, there was a knock at the door. Daniel and I froze. It was nearly midnight. He walked to the door and opened it slowly. 2 officers stood on the other side. Good evening, one of them said. We're looking for Margaret Lane. I stood up slowly. That's me. You've been named in a complaint, the officer said, pulling out a paper. Alleging elder abuse and property fraud. My heart dropped. Daniel looked at me, horrified. What? I stepped forward, hands trembling. What are you talking about? The officer handed me the paper. The name at the bottom of the report. Linda Mayfield Lane. She had filed a formal complaint against me. And now, I had a case to fight. To be continued. Linda just escalated things to a whole new level. Will Margaret be able to prove her innocence? Or will Linda's lies cost her everything again? What would you do if the law got involved after protecting yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this video and subscribe. Next chapter is going to be intense. You won't want to miss it. The officer's voice echoed in my ears like a bad dream. Formal complaint. Elder abuse. Property fraud. For a second I couldn't breathe. Daniel stepped in front of me. This is a mistake. My mother, she didn't do anything wrong. The officer looked at him carefully. Then I'm sure it'll be resolved quickly, sir. But we still need her to come down to the station in the morning. Standard procedure. I nodded slowly, swallowing the knot rising in my throat. I understand. They left without cuffs, without threats, but the damage was done. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, my hands shaking, my soul cracked. I had survived decades of hardship, raising a child alone, working until my knees gave out, but nothing prepared me for being accused of hurting someone. Linda had crossed a line no one comes back from. Daniel stood quietly in the doorway, guilt carved deep into his face. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. This is my fault. All of it. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I stared at the framed photo of my younger self holding baby Daniel, my smile wide, my eyes proud. That woman had no idea what her future held. At 9 a.m., Henry drove me to the station. The ride was silent. My palms sweat against my skirt. At the precinct, I was led into a small gray room. A detective with tired eyes and a gentle voice slid into the chair across from me. Mrs. Lane, thank you for coming. We just have some routine questions. He explained that Linda's complaint said I had tricked her and Daniel into signing away property they were legally entitled to, and that I had been emotionally abusive, causing mental distress and instability. I blinked, stunned. She said what? The detective sighed. She claims you manipulated your son, isolated her, and threatened her well-being. She provided some text messages and voice recordings. I leaned forward. Recordings of me. He hesitated. Some voice memos. That could have been edited, I said. I have documents. Legal documents. Witnesses. Security footage. He nodded. You're not under arrest, Mrs. Lane. We're just reviewing the claim. If you have evidence, we'll look at it. I pulled out the envelope from my purse, the one Mr. Harper helped me put together. Property titles, timestamps of the viral videos, a notarized record of Linda's threats to the local store, even the receipts of the furniture she donated without permission. The detective looked through it carefully. When he saw the video transcript where Linda mocked me and called me a roach with old skin, his jaw clenched. Would you like to add anything, Mrs. Lane? He asked. Yes, I said, voice trembling. I loved that girl like a daughter. I let her eat from my plate. And she tried to destroy me for comfort. He nodded quietly. You're free to go, he said. We'll be in touch. Back at the guest house, Daniel met me at the door. His eyes searched my face for answers. They believed you. Exhaled. They didn't not believe me. It's not over. But I gave them everything. Daniel sat down slowly, rubbing his face with both hands. I've ruined everything. No, I said. Linda did. He looked up. But I let her. And that was the truth. The next few days were hard. The story had spread across town. Whispers followed me at the supermarket. Some people gave me sympathetic nods. Others looked away. The older women from my prayer group texted but didn't call. But then, I received an unexpected visit. From her. Linda. Heavily pregnant now, or at least showing enough to make it real. She stood outside the guest house, wearing a pink dress and sunglasses. I stepped out onto the porch. My heart pounded. You've got nerve showing up here, I said calmly. I wanted to talk. You already said enough to the police. She scoffed. I wasn't trying to get you arrested. I just needed leverage. I thought if I scared you, you'd back off and give us the house. And blinked. So you admit it. She looked around, dropped her voice. I'll take it back. The complaint. Just give me the house. Or a portion. Anything. My hands curled at my sides. You think this is about land? A house. I'm about to raise a child, Margaret. No, I raised a child. You built a trap. She stepped forward. Fine. Then you leave me no choice. She pulled out her phone. What's that? Yes. Evidence. All the calls Daniel made to you. All the arguments. Even recordings of you venting. I can edit them to make you sound unstable. I stared at her. And you think blackmail will work now? He smirked. It's already working. I walked back inside and returned with my own folder. I handed it to her. Read the name on that deed. She flipped it open. Her eyes scanned the paper. Then again. Then her face went white. She looked up. What is this? Your worst nightmare, I said. That house. It's now in the name of my grandchild. The baby you're carrying. He gasped. What? Smiled. You heard me. I went to the court yesterday. With Daniel. We signed everything. Bypassed you. That house belongs to the child now. Held in a trust until they're 25. If anything happens to me, Daniel becomes the guardian. But you're excluded by law. Her lips trembled. You can't do that. I already did. And you'll be hearing from our lawyer soon. Any threats, any more lies, any social media posts. You'll lose visitation. He screamed. You're a witch. I stared her down. No, Linda. I'm a mother. A grandmother. And I'm done letting people like you think love means weakness. She turned and fled, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Daniel stepped out from behind the curtain. You really did that? He asked softly. He nodded. I had to. She'll never forgive you. I turned to him. I'm not interested in her forgiveness. Only justice. That night, as I sat by the window sipping tea, I finally felt something I hadn't in years. But just as I started to rest, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you won. The real war hasn't even started. Attached was a photo of a lawyer's office door. Linda had just hired her own team. And what came next would decide everything. To be continued. Would you have gone as far as Margaret? Did she do the right thing for the grandchild or go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Next chapter is where the courtroom and karma finally collide. You don't want to miss it. The message stayed on my phone screen long after I read it. You think you won. The real war hasn't even started. That one sentence sat heavy in my chest like wet cement. Linda wasn't backing down. She was going to drag this fight through every corner of the legal system if it meant clinging to what little control she had left. And to be honest, I was tired. Tired of courts, lawyers, documents, whispers. Tired of defending myself for simply standing up for my dignity. But I couldn't quit now. Not after everything I'd already survived. Not with my grandchild's future hanging in the balance. Daniel sat beside me on the porch, silent, rubbing his palms together like he was washing invisible guilt off his skin. She's filed for emergency guardianship, he muttered. Says I'm unstable. Says you're manipulating me. I looked at him, searching his face. Are you? He stared down at his shoes. I don't know who I am anymore, Mom. But I'm trying to be someone better. He nodded. Then stand firm. Because this time you're going to need a backbone like mine. The next morning Mr. Harper called. She filed through a loophole. She's claiming emotional abuse on behalf of the unborn child. She wants full control of the house, claiming the trust is a setup to alienate her rights. I nearly dropped the phone. She's suing her own unborn child. She's suing the concept of exclusion, Harper clarified. But don't panic. I've seen cases like this. We just need to counter fast. He told me to gather anything that proved Linda's unfitness. Messages, videos, witness accounts. Daniel agreed to testify on my behalf. That same night, I got a call from one of the deacons at my old church, Mrs. Annabel Green. Margaret, she said in her slow, gravelly voice. You ain't gonna believe what that girl did at the women's meeting this morning. What now? She stood up in front of everyone and cried about how you tossed her out while pregnant, and how you were jealous of her youth. Decide. Did people believe her? Some, Annabel admitted. But not me. And not everyone. I told them what I knew. Told them what you've done for this town. That shut them up real quick. My heart warmed a little. At least some people still remembered who I was beneath the headlines. But Linda wasn't done. The next day I opened my front door and froze. There on the porch was a large yellow envelope. Inside were printed screenshots. Photos of me walking into a pharmacy, talking to Henry outside the store, and even one of me sitting alone at the park. It wasn't the photos that scared me. It was the note taped to the last page. Nice routine you have. Shame if it changed. I clutched the edges, heart racing. Linda was watching me now. Talking. Threatening. Daniel called the police and filed a report, but without direct evidence linking it to Linda, there wasn't much they could do. Still, the message was clear. She was unraveling. And dangerous. The court date was set for the following week. The case. Linda versus Daniel and Margaret Lane. Charge. Abuse of trust, guardianship manipulation, and property fraud. I had never sat in a courtroom before. Never had to wear my Sunday best just to defend my right to breathe. But as I walked through those courtroom doors, head held high, I remembered every insult, every eye roll, every time they called me just in the way. I wasn't here to defend what I owned. I was here to defend who I was. Linda showed up late. Hair done. Belly bulging under a tight dress. She walked like a celebrity in a courtroom drama, flanked by a suited lawyer who looked barely old enough to rent a car. She didn't glance at me. She sat with her shoulders high and eyes forward. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, entered with a gavel bang that made the whole room straighten. We're here today to determine guardianship and trust ownership regarding the unborn minor, as well as property claims made by the petitioner Linda Mayfield Lane against the respondents Margaret and Daniel Lane. Linda's lawyer spoke first. He claimed I used emotional manipulation to isolate Linda and bribe Daniel. That I created an illegal trust to exclude a mother from her child's birthright. She is unfit to be in control of this family's legacy, he said confidently. She uses fear and control, masking it with grandmotherly charm. I almost laughed. If charm were a weapon, I'd be a general. Then it was Mr. Harper's turn. He stood slowly, calm and composed, and laid out every fact. How Linda humiliated me publicly. The video evidence of her manipulation. The photos of the spray-painted store. The police report about her anonymous threats. The notarized testimony of Daniel. And most of all, the solid lawful trust agreement placing the child's well-being first. Then Daniel stood. His voice cracked, but he told the truth. My wife didn't want to build a home. She wanted to take one. My mother didn't exile us. She protected herself. And now she's protecting our child, because she's the only one who still knows what family means. The courtroom was silent. Even Linda's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Linda tried to speak, but the judge held up her hand. Mrs. Mayfield Lane, the judge said, you've used this courtroom to wage a personal vendetta, not to serve the child's interest. He turned to me. Mrs. Lane, you are hereby reaffirmed as trustee of the property and guardian of the estate. Your actions, while unconventional, were legal and protective. She then turned to Linda. If further harassment or false reporting occurs, criminal charges will follow. Do I make myself clear? Linda opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at her, not with hatred but pity. This was a woman who lost everything by trying to control what was never hers. Outside the courthouse, the press tried to swarm, but Henry pulled up in his truck and waved me in. Daniel walked beside me, silent. He didn't speak until we were halfway home. Mom. Yes, baby. He looked down. Would you ever trust me with anything again? I looked out the window. I don't know. But I know I still love you. He nodded slowly. That's more than I deserve. Back at the guest house, I placed the trust file in my drawer, locked it, and sat in my rocking chair. The wind outside was gentle. Birds chirped. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for war. But just as I began to close my eyes, there was a new message on my phone. From an unknown email address. You won the court. But you haven't won me. And attached. A sonogram photo. With a caption. Let's see what the baby has to say in 10 years. Linda wasn't done. And now, she was planting seeds for the future. To be continued. What did you think of this courtroom twist? Did Margaret handle it the right way? And what do you think Linda's next move will be? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Next chapter will dig into the battle for the grandchild's future, and it's only getting deeper from here. I stared at the message on my phone for a long time. Let's see what the baby has to say in 10 years. The sonogram photo felt like a punch. Not because of the image itself. I'd already accepted the child was real, but because it came with a chilling suggestion that Linda wasn't giving up. She had lost the house, the court, and my trust, but now she was playing the long game. She was planting resentment like seeds in a garden she fully expected to reap someday. And I couldn't stop shaking. Daniel walked into the room, saw my face, and froze. What is it, Mom? I handed him the phone. He read the message slowly. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Finally he whispered, She's threatening to use the child. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. She'll twist that baby against me. Just like she twisted you. Daniel winced but didn't argue. We won the court. What more can she do? I looked him dead in the eyes. She's not after a house anymore. She wants control over the story. Over everything. The next morning I met with Mr. Harper again. His eyes scanned the email, his jaw tightening. This isn't a legal threat, he said, but it's definitely emotional warfare. And if she keeps sending things like this, we can file for a restraining order. But will that stop her from poisoning that child's mind? Asked, my voice breaking. No, he said gently. But you can stop that. How? By being present, being better, being the light she can't dim. I left the office feeling like I was balancing on a cliff. But something had shifted in me. For the first time I stopped focusing on Linda and started thinking about that unborn child. My grandchild. They were the innocent one. The only one who hadn't asked for any of this drama. That night, I pulled out an old photo album and turned the pages slowly. Me holding baby Daniel. Him dressed as a cowboy. His first birthday. A drawing he made of the two of us when he was 5. Back then, everything had felt so pure. So real. And now, it all felt like ash. The next week passed quietly. Too quietly. No more emails. No phone calls. No threats. Daniel spent most of his time at the community center volunteering. He said he needed space from everything. I supported him, but I watched him closely. He was healing, but he was also grieving. And grief had a way of sneaking back up on you when you least expected it. Then, one afternoon, as I watered my potted basil by the porch, Henry came running down the path, out of breath. Margaret, you better come see this. I followed him to the back office of the store. He pulled up a live stream video on his phone. It was Linda, sitting in a fancy apartment with velvet curtains, sipping tea like a celebrity. And she was speaking directly to the camera. This is for my future baby, she said sweetly. I just want them to know, if I don't make it, it's not because I didn't fight. Grandma Margaret wanted me out of the picture. She did everything to make sure they'd never know who I really am. I sniff. Force tears. If you're watching this years from now, baby, know that I loved you first. And I fought harder than anyone. They may have erased me, but I was your mother. And I never stopped loving you. Then the screen faded to black. I sat down, stunned. She's recording legacy lies, I whispered. Henry nodded. And she's making it look like you're the villain. Felt sick. This wasn't about the law anymore. It was about legacy, about shaping the child's truth before they could even speak. I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, haunted by the idea that my grandchild would grow up thinking I was the woman Linda portrayed. And I realized something painful. I couldn't beat her at her game, but I could change the rules. So I started something. A video diary. Every night I sat in front of my old laptop, looked into the camera and spoke. Not like I was fighting anyone, but like I was speaking to my grandchild. I told them about their father, what he was like as a boy, what games he liked, how he once cried when his goldfish died. I told them about the day I first found out about them. I told them I loved them. That no matter how messy things got, they were born into a storm that wasn't their fault. And I promised, if you ever want the truth, not the courtroom truth, not the social media truth, but my truth, it's here. Every day. Waiting. Daniel helped me set up a private folder, locked with a password only he and I knew. He cried watching the first video. And then, he recorded one of his own. For his child. My mistakes aren't yours, he said. And your mother, she's not a monster. But she got lost. And I did too. I'm finding my way back. It became our ritual. Every night a new video. Not to fight Linda. Not to hurt her. But to leave behind something real. 2 weeks passed. Then came the next twist. I got a letter in the mail. Official envelope. No return address. Inside. A printed document and a note. The document. Linda had changed the baby's last name. Removed Lane entirely. Claimed the baby wasn't Daniel's. Said she would be raising the child alone. The note. Erase me if you want. I'll erase you back. I felt the room spin. Daniel was pacing behind me, his fists clenched. She's trying to wipe me from our child's life. She's trying to erase all of us, I said. And then I made a decision. One that Daniel didn't see coming. I called Mr. Harper. I want to file for grandparent visitation rights. Preemptively. I want legal contact with that baby the moment it's born. Margaret, he warned. That'll escalate everything. Smiled. Good. Let her come back to court. But this time I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for them. And that same night, I recorded one more video. Only this time I said something different. One day you'll hear two sides of this story. Just know I never stopped loving you. Even when your mother made me into her enemy. But what I didn't expect was the message that would arrive just hours later. Text. From an unknown number. She's in labor. Lone. She told the hospital you're banned from the room. To be continued. Things just got even more emotional. Linda's in labor, and Margaret is locked out. Should she go to the hospital anyway? Should she fight for that baby? Let us know in the comments. And if you're still following this journey, please like, share, and subscribe. Next chapter is the turning point, and you won't want to miss the moment that changes Margaret's life forever. The moment I read the message. She's in labor. Lone. She told the hospital you're banned from the room. 1,000 emotions exploded in my chest at once. Sadness, fear, but most of all grief. I didn't even know where the hospital was. And that was the cruelest part. My grandchild was entering the world, and I, their grandmother, was being deliberately kept in the dark. Daniel stood across the room, pale, shaking, as if someone had taken the ground from beneath his feet. She blocked me, he said, voice breaking. She told them I wasn't the father. It was the first time I'd seen him cry like that since he was 12. He slumped onto the floor, phone in hand, staring at it like it had betrayed him. She's really going to raise the baby without me. I wanted to scream. Wanted to shake him, tell him to stand up and fight. But I couldn't. 'Cause I felt paralyzed too. After everything, after courts, lawyers, documents, videos, truth, Linda still found a way to isolate us completely. She waited until the one moment no one could stop her. Birth. I sat beside Daniel on the floor, my hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "This isn't over. That child has Lane blood. No one can erase that. Not even her." By morning there was still no word. We had no idea if the baby was born, if they were safe, if Linda had gone through with putting a different name on the birth certificate. Mr. Harper called mid-morning. "I made some calls," he said. "She checked in at Oak Ridge Medical around 10 p.m. last night. Under Linda Mayfield. No father listed. The hospital is honoring her request to keep visitors away unless legally permitted." I swallowed hard. "So we're frozen. For now. But not forever. I'll petition for postnatal DNA testing. If Daniel's proven the father, we'll reopen visitation rights. Can we stop her from fleeing?" "Yes." Harper sighed. "We can request an emergency hold, but unless she breaks a law, there's not much to hold her for. She hasn't technically committed a crime." Daniel jumped up. "We can't just sit here while she takes our child and disappears." He grabbed his keys. "I'm going to the hospital anyway." I stepped in front of him. "And what? Get escorted out by security? You'll look unstable. You'll lose your chance." He froze, breathing hard, fists clenched. Then he sank back onto the couch. "Mom, what do I do?" I took his hands in mine. "You pray. You prepare. And you fight with strategy. Not rage." He nodded. That evening I did something I thought I never would. I called Linda. It went straight to voicemail. But I spoke anyway. "Linda, I don't know if you'll ever let me see that child. But I need you to hear this. They're not a trophy. Not a tool. Not a way to get back at me or Daniel. That child is a soul. Blank page. Don't fill their first chapter with war." I hung up, my hands shaking. And then I did what I always do when life knocks me flat. Bake a fresh banana bread. The smell filled the guest house like a warm memory. As I stirred the batter, I thought about that child. My grandchild. Would they have my nose? Daniel's eyes. Would they love the smell of cinnamon like I do? I sat with those thoughts until I couldn't hold the tears anymore. 2 days passed. Then 3. No news. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, Daniel came running in, breathless. She posted a photo. I turned to him slowly. Of the baby. He nodded. We opened his phone together. It was a grainy photo, just a tiny hand curled around Linda's finger. The caption read, "Welcome, little warrior. No one will ever hurt you on my watch." Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Daniel dropped the phone. She's really going to cut me out. And then my own phone buzzed. New email. From Linda. Subject line. If you ever want to see the baby. I clicked it open, heart pounding. Inside was a single sentence. Meet me alone. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. At the old church. Come without Daniel. No signature. No further instructions. I read it 3 times. Do I go? Asked Daniel. He was furious. No. She's playing games. You can't trust her. She's the mother, I said. And she's asking for me. Not you. Daniel shook his head. What if it's a trap? What if she wants to record you, twist your words again? I hesitated. But deep inside, I felt something strange. Flicker of hope. She wouldn't have written if she didn't want something. The next morning, I dressed in my best gray dress and packed a Bible and a pen in my bag. 2 things that had carried me through darker days than this. Henry offered to follow me quietly, just in case, but I told him no. This was something I had to do alone. I arrived at the old church at 9:58 a.m. It was quiet. Empty pews stretched before the altar like silent witnesses. And then she appeared. Linda. Bill. No makeup. No sunglasses. No armor. She stepped inside, holding a small blue blanket against her chest. My heart stopped. Took a breath. She walked slowly, sat in the front pew, and motioned for me to join her. I sat down. We didn't speak for a while. Just the faint rustle of the baby blanket as she adjusted her arms. Then she whispered, "I haven't slept in 4 days." He nodded. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear. "I'm scared," she said. I stayed still. "I thought winning meant controlling everything," she said. "But now I'm just sitting in a dark apartment with a baby who won't stop crying. And no one to help me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't want to be my mother," she whispered. "And I think I already am." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You're not beyond saving, Linda. But you have to want help. Not trick it. Not fight it. Accept it." She nodded slowly. "I want her to know her father," she said. "But I don't know how to trust you." "You don't have to trust me today," I replied gently. "But you can let me hold her." Long pause. Then slowly she stood, walked around, and placed the warm bundle in my arms. I looked down at a tiny, perfect face, big brown eyes blinking up at me, and I felt something wash over me. Peace, pain, love, all at once. I whispered, "Hello, sweet girl." Linda sat beside me, head on her hands. I named her Hope. My heart cracked. "Hope Lane." Linda looked down. "Hope Mayfield." But she hesitated, then quietly added, "We can talk about adding Lane." I held the baby tighter. And just as the moment softened, Linda's phone rang. She glanced at it. Her face paled. "I need to take this." She stepped out. I stayed, holding Hope, rocking gently. And then the church door creaked open again. But it wasn't Linda. It was a man in a black coat. He looked at me, cold, unblinking, then reached for his jacket pocket. And I knew. This wasn't over. To be continued. Who is this mysterious man? What threat is waiting for Margaret and baby Hope now? Was Linda being honest, or setting another trap? Comment below, like this story, and subscribe. Next chapter is about to take us into the storm again. Don't miss what's coming. The man's shadow filled the old church doorway like a cold wind. He stepped inside slowly, his shoes echoing off the wooden floorboards, each step deliberate and heavy. My heart leapt to my throat. Still holding baby Hope to my chest, I stood quickly, placing a protective hand over her tiny head. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice firm but shaking. He didn't answer, just kept walking. Closer. and closer. I scanned for Linda, but she wasn't in sight. She had stepped outside to take the call and hadn't come back. The man stopped at the front pew and pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket. He handed it to me without a word. I looked down at it. Legal notice. It was from a private law firm. Petition to assume sole parental custody. Filed by Joshua Kent. Claiming to be biological father of Hope Mayfield. My knees buckled, but I stayed standing, for the child if not for myself. Who sent you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I represent Mr. Kent, he said. He has DNA proof that he is the child's father and will be seeking full custody. As of now, the court will request a mandatory paternity test. If he is found to be the father, all previous claims, including those involving Daniel Lane, will be reviewed. My grip tightened on the baby. This couldn't be real. Linda said Daniel was the father. All this time. Everything we had fought for, the trust, the guardianship, the visitation rights, it all hinged on that truth. And now it was being ripped away. Where is Linda? I asked again. He glanced toward the back doors of the church. She left. My blood ran cold. Left where? The man shrugged. She said you'd take care of the baby now. That she needed to go clear her head. I stepped forward, hope still cradled to me. You mean she just walked away? Left her newborn child? He nodded without emotion. She said you'd understand. And with that he turned and left. I stood frozen in the church with a baby who, suddenly, might not be my grandchild. Tears stung my eyes as I sank into the pew. Hope squirmed in my arms, unaware of the storm surrounding her tiny life. Where was Linda going? Why now? I pulled out my phone and called Daniel. No answer. Then I called Mr. Harper. He picked up on the second ring. Margaret. What is it? I told him everything. The man. The legal notice. The new paternity claim. He went silent. Then. If what they're saying is true, we may have a serious complication. I'll call a judge and request a stay on the custody order until a proper DNA test is completed. I was quiet for a moment. Then I whispered. What if Daniel's not the father? There was a long pause. Then the trust reverts. The guardianship dissolves. The house technically becomes unassigned until a court redistributes the assets based on parental rights. My head swam. Everything I had done to protect this child, to protect Daniel's legacy, might crumble in a single court session. I looked down at Hope. I don't care, I whispered. Harper was confused. What? I don't care whose blood she carries, I said firmly. I love this baby. I will fight for her anyway. That night, Daniel came back to the guest house in a rush, sweating, panicked. I just got your messages. I tried calling Linda, her phone's off. I even went by her old apartment. She's gone. She left the baby with me, I said softly. Daniel stared at Hope in my arms. He stepped closer, eyes full of emotion. I don't know if she's mine, he said. Does it matter? Yes. He paused. No, he said finally. Not to me. We spent the next 3 days filing emergency paperwork, preparing for the paternity hearing. Mr. Harper moved fast, collecting character statements, proof of abandonment, and building a case for why I or Daniel should retain custody, regardless of the DNA outcome. But then came the phone call. From a woman who refused to give her name. You don't know me, she said, but I know Linda. And I know the man claiming to be the father. I gripped the phone tight. Who are you? That baby isn't his, the woman said. I was with him. He's a con. Linda paid him to fake the test to get back at you. My breath caught. You're lying. No, she said. But she is. She's gone now. Probably out of state. But if you fight, you can win. Don't give her what she wants. The call ended. I sat there stunned. Linda faked it. Fabricated a father. And just left. I told Harper. He ordered an immediate motion for a protective hearing. We requested that custody be granted to me pending the court's decision and full investigation. And the court agreed. I was granted temporary guardianship. Daniel was listed as potential father. In hope, she stayed in my arms. If warm. But the mystery wasn't over. That night I received one final email. From a new address. The subject line. I left because I had to. Inside was a letter. From Linda. Margaret. You'll never understand what it's like to grow up unwanted. To never have control. I saw power in your eyes and it scared me. I knew you'd win in court. That baby deserves better than two broken people arguing over who gets the last piece of pride. Daniel will be a better father without me. You'll be a better grandmother than I ever could be as a mother. Tell her. When she's old enough. I wanted her to have peace. I'll never come back. Linda. I read it twice. Then 3 times. And for the first time since this began. Cried. Not for Linda. But for the little girl in my arms, who would grow up asking where her mother went. Who would carry the scars of a choice she never made. But as I looked at her, sleeping peacefully against my chest, I made a promise. I will never let you feel unwanted, no matter what came next. And yet, just as I whispered that, my phone buzzed again, this time from the hospital. Mrs. Lane, this is the pediatric unit. We need to speak with you urgently about baby Hope's blood work. Froze. What's wrong? Something doesn't match. We need you and Daniel to come in. Immediately. To be continued. Linda's gone. Margaret has temporary custody. But now the hospital has found something alarming in the baby's blood work. Is there a hidden truth no one saw coming? Don't miss the next chapter. The emotional finale that brings everything full circle. Like, comment, and subscribe, because you won't believe what's coming next. The ride to the hospital was dead silent. Daniel sat beside me, gripping the seat like he was bracing for impact. I held baby Hope close to my chest, her tiny breaths warm against my skin. I had already fallen in love with this child, blood or no blood. But something about that phone call from the pediatric unit had shattered whatever peace I thought I had found. What could possibly be wrong with her blood work? We were escorted through a back entrance when we arrived. Quietly, discreetly. A nurse led us to a private consultation room, where 2 pediatric specialists waited, their expressions unreadable. Mrs. Lane, the doctor began. Thank you for coming in. What is it? Asked. Please don't stall. Is she sick? He glanced at the chart. No, Hope is stable and healthy, thankfully. But there's something else. Something we discovered when processing her newborn screening panel. I tightened my hold on her. What did you find? The doctor placed the file on the desk and gently pushed it toward us. Hope's blood type is AB negative. Blinked. Okay. The doctor continued. That wouldn't be unusual except that both the man claiming to be the biological father, Joshua Kent, and the presumed father, Daniel Lane, are blood type O. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. So, neither of us are a match. The doctor nodded. I'm sorry, he said gently. That means neither of you is biologically related to this child. I went cold. The room swam for a second. Daniel sat back in his chair like he'd just been punched in the chest. What are you saying? That she's not mine. That Linda lied about everything. I'm afraid that's exactly what we're saying, the doctor confirmed. Daniel stood pacing. No, I was with her the entire time. We were living together. We were trying for a baby. I clutched Hope tighter, her soft little body unaware of the storm breaking around her. Then something occurred to me. Doctor, if neither of them are the parents, where did this baby come from? The doctor hesitated, then leaned in. We don't know. But it's possible this wasn't a birth deception. It could have been a switch. Daniel turned to him, face pale. A switch. Like at the hospital. He nodded. We've had rare cases before. Accidental swaps in maternity wards. Especially if the mother was checked in under a false name, like Linda was. If she gave birth near the same time as another woman, and they both were under restricted privacy settings, it's possible the babies were confused. Or, he hesitated. Or, this was deliberate. Froze. Deliberate. Linda left us with a baby that wasn't even hers. Daniel sat back down, head in his hands. So whose baby is this? The doctor stood. We're launching a full investigation. And until then, we need to ask that baby Hope be placed in temporary hospital care while we sort this out. My body moved on instinct. I clutched Hope tighter and stood up. No, Mrs. Lane. No, said louder. This baby has been fed, bathed, loved and kept safe in my arms since the moment she was born. She knows my heartbeat. She reaches for my voice. I don't care what the charts say. She is not going to be handed over like lost luggage. The doctor stepped back, surprised by the fire in my voice. Daniel stood beside me. We'll file an emergency injunction, he said to the doctor. You're not taking her until a judge tells us otherwise. And just like that we left. That night I held Hope longer than usual. I sang to her softly, prayed over her, promised her again that I would never leave her, even if the world tried to split us apart. But my heart was breaking. Because I knew the truth. I had no legal claim, no blood connection, and no idea where she really came from. Daniel sat across from me, holding his head. Mom, he said quietly. I want to keep her. So do I. But we can't lie to the real parents. If someone out there is looking for her. I know, I said, swallowing hard. I know. The next day we were summoned to court. The hospital had filed a notice with Child Protective Services. A guardian ad litem had been appointed. They were recommending that Hope be placed in neutral foster care until her biological family could be found. I cried all night. Daniel didn't sleep at all. The hearing was set for the next morning. At 8:45 a.m., just before we were supposed to leave for court, there was a knock on the door. Henry answered it. And standing there was a woman, mid-30s, eyes swollen from crying, holding a worn-out photograph. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I think that baby you have, she's mine. I stepped forward stunned. Come in. She held up the photograph. It was of her, pregnant, standing with a man who looked like her brother. She explained that she had given birth at Oak Ridge Medical, the same night as Linda. Her baby was missing. But her discharge papers had been altered. I kept asking the nurses where my baby was. They said she had been transferred to the NICU. But then another nurse came in and told me she had already been discharged. I knew something wasn't right. She'd spent days demanding answers. And someone finally gave her my name. I saw her face on the court website, she whispered. That's my daughter. I know her hands. I know that nose. And I know what I felt when she was taken. Daniel stepped back stunned. I looked at the woman, then at Hope, then back at her. And I knew. It was true. She knelt down beside me. Hope opened her eyes and reached toward her. Her mother. Real mother. I handed her over slowly. Hope snuggled in immediately, recognizing a rhythm I could never replicate. The woman broke down sobbing. And so did I. Daniel stepped forward and put his hand on her shoulder. You found her. Thank God. She looked up, eyes red. But you raised her. You cared for her when no one else did. That means something. I nodded through my tears. It meant everything. Later that afternoon in the courtroom, I handed over the final legal papers. Hope's custody was restored to her rightful mother. But before the judge could dismiss me, the woman, whose name was Amanda, stood up. Your Honor, she said, I want it noted that Margaret Lane and her son Daniel provided my daughter with love, safety, and dignity when the system failed us. I owe them everything. The judge nodded. So noted. Ms. Lane, thank you for your service to this child. And just like that, it was over. We walked out of the courthouse into the sunshine. Empty arms, but full hearts. Daniel looked at me. I feel like we lost her. I shook my head. No, baby. We found her. And now we know she's safe. That's the best kind of goodbye. A week passed. Then two. And one morning as I opened my front door, I found a package on the step. Inside was a letter. From Amanda. Dear Margaret, we're doing well. Hope is growing fast. I wanted you to have this. She smiles when she hears your name. You are not her grandmother by blood, but you are her angel by love. Always, Amanda and Hope. Inside was a framed photo. Me, holding baby Hope. With the caption, the woman who held me until my mother found me. And I wept. Because no matter how this all began, in the end love still found its way home. Did this story touch your heart? If Margaret's journey reminded you of the quiet strength of love, sacrifice, and the meaning of family, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your story matters too. Tell us, what would you have done if you were in her shoes? And remember, even if you're not blood, love can still make you family.